Well, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you today about our efforts to engage new partners and identify new E3 financial implementation opportunities as we pilot the E3 approach within the agricultural sector. I'm Myla Kelly. I'm the coordinator of EPA's Region 8 Pollution Prevention Information Center, which serves the states of the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. We're located at Montana State University in beautiful Bozeman, Montana, and we're a program within Extension's Housing and Environmental Health Department. In addition to serving as a Pollution Prevention Information Center, we also coordinate the National Tribal Pollution Prevention Work Group, which is comprised of over 80 tribes around the country, and regionally we manage a greening local government initiative. Since I know very few of you, by quick way of introduction, after growing up in the Northeast and completing my undergraduate degree in biology at Tufts University, I made a pretty quick tracks out to the wild landscapes of the West. I did my graduate work out here in watershed management, worked as a tribal riparian ecologist for quite a while, and water quality consultant. And I've managed our P2 center for a little over 3 years now, and I love it because it brings together the things that I really love, which are, the environment and convening people to learn from one another. So whether it's tribal environmental professionals, local government officials, or ag producers, it's been a great synergy for me. So I wanted to start, I feel a little bit like the red-headed stepchild here talking about agriculture, but that's okay. I hope this gives you kind of a good case study of one example of how E3 is working out here. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the background of our project, because it is a different model, although it's the same framework than most of you have seen within the manufacturing sector. So the first question you're probably asking is why agriculture, and the vast landscape as you're looking at your Rand McNally Road Atlas and planning your next road trip, the area where there isn't much, where you need to plan ahead so you don't run out of gas. That's us out here. And, ag activities represent the largest land use in Region 8. And from an environmental perspective, the most widespread set of potential impacts on the environment. It is our largest economic sector, with over half of our land area devoted to crop and livestock livestock production. So that's why ag for us. It just kind of makes sense out here for now. We began some initial discussions in the spring of 2012 with a lot of different partners that I'll talk about in a few minutes. And as seed money, EPA Region 8 awarded us a source reduction grant of $110,000, the objective of which was to, via E3 assessments, to work with our agricultural community to, and these are things you're all familiar with, reduce energy consumption, increase productivity, minimize carbon emissions, prevent pollution, and drive innovation. In the fall of 2012, that was just filled with a series of phone and personal meetings to discuss partnership opportunities with potential stakeholders. Through these meetings, particularly with the potential USDA partners, we came up with this overarching project goal, and that is to ensure that by participating in E3, we've put our agricultural producers in the best position possible to maximize available financial opportunities in order to implement E3 recommendations. Now, this goal is by no means rocket science or a stroke of brilliance in any way, but it has been really critical in designing the rest of our project. We need to ensure that our E3 ag assessments are meeting the highest bar that there is for funding opportunities, and I'll talk more about that in a couple of slides. So, what is the environmental benefit from one assessment? Well, we hope that there will be an economic benefit to the producer, but to really see any mighty environmental benefit on our landscape, we need these assessments to sort of go forth and multiply. And how do we make that happen? We need, number one, access to farmers' land. Number two, we need a lot of boots on the ground. I cannot do this walking around Montana. And number three, we need farmers to tell farmers that this is a worthwhile process. Again, it's not, I can talk and talk and talk, but it's really not until the farmer tells his neighbor that this is working, that this is really going to start to happen. So number one, we need access to farmers' land and their operations. And let's be just really practical that there's a very real trust issue here. Our Montana farmers are dealing with old regulations, new regulations that are coming at them fast and furious from a great multitude of agencies. And in a great dose of irony, these are the same agencies whose logos are so prominently placed on the back of our E3 brochure that I hand them. So when I figured out that the whiteout wasn't working, I decided to just embrace it, and I'll give you a couple examples of how this looks and why it is such a real issue that we've needed to address. Here's just a couple of examples. Big red, bold, scary letters on EPA's emergency management site. Farms now have less than 6 months to prepare or amend and implement their SPCC plans. Compliance date for farms is May 10th, 2013. So this is dealing with a concern over oil spills entering our navigable waters. Another issue, Department of Labor Youth Farm Labor proposal was kind of pertaining to regulating youth working on family farms. So the number of hours of training that were required and the concern that regulations would take away, and the concern from the farmers that regulations would take away the opportunity to kind of learn by doing for the people that they're counting on to become the next generation of farmers. So I'm certainly not advocating that these really important environmental or labor measures go away, but we have to just be aware that that there's a hurdle, a wall covered in barbed wire. No, I'm just kidding. That there's a hurdle to overcome before we can really get started here. So now I can get my good friends and the kind of the choir, what we call the choir out here, to sign on to E3 assessments. This is Anna Crabtree-Jones. She's a visionary sustainability professional for the U.S. Forest Service, and she's a farmer of 2 sections of land, which is about 1,200 acres on the Montana side of the Canadian border. And she's super keen on E3, and I say this with the utmost respect for what they're doing, but they're, as I was saying, they're kind of the choir. They're already doing all these great things in the arena of energy efficiency, pesticide minimization, because these are an important part of their ethic. Next time you eat Annie's mac and cheese, those of you with kids know what I'm talking about. Think of these are folks that contribute to the Annie's mac and cheese organic grains. So Anna can teach us a number of things that we are using within our E3 assessment, but as far as our metric margins go and completing an E3 assessment on an operation like theirs, they would be small, to say the least. So what we really need, is the anti-choir. We want the folks not totally convinced of no-till, that are not sure about upgrading equipment, the ones that are kind of, as we say, they're looking over their neighbor's fence to kind of see what the other guy's doing. Did that slide come up? Okay. Well, it doesn't come up on my screen. But anyway, so it's just a bunch of agency logos, everybody that's helping out with this E3 process. And in looking at that and deciding how do you solve how do we together solve the challenge of gaining trust, getting a bunch of boots on the ground, and getting the farmers brought in? Who do we decide to partner with? Oh, I see. Here we go. Okay. Da-da-da. Let's go on to the next slide. And this is where I think the model that we've chosen can be widely used, capitalizing on these networks that Matt was talking about in the beginning, some of them that we've recognized and some that might be new on the E3 horizon, and capitalizing on the work of Congressman Morrill in 1862 established the land-grant institutions to teach the practice of agriculture, engineering, and science to the common folk. And then after that, the establishment of the Cooperative Extension Service in 1914, whose aim was really to send agents into rural areas to bring ag research to the end users. And I believe that without the Cooperative Extension partnership here, this E3 concept in ag would really struggle. We have professionals in each county that are in place to help Montana agri-producers and landowners increase profits, reduce loss, protect our food supply. And they have an established trust relationship with the producers. And because of that, they're essential in finding producers willing to participate in an E3 assessment. Number 2, communicating the benefits of an E3 assessment and the subsequent implementation of recommendations. And number 3, communicating successful outcomes to other producers in the state. So thinking back to our goal of ensuring our assessments qualify producers for the highest funding opportunity bar, our second critical partnership is USDA's NRCS program, the Natural Resource Conservation Service. The NRCS emphasizes voluntary science-based assistance, partnerships, and cooperative problem solving. They've developed numerous technical tools, such as the Cropland Energy Estimator, that is important for us in calculating our E3 metrics. And they also have funding sources, such as the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. This is our highest bar. And ensuring that our producers are eligible for EQIP funding upon completion of our E3 assessments is really critical in seeing that these E3 recommendations are implemented. So it sounds easy, but this is harder than it sounds. There's very few qualified, literally like a handful of service providers in the nation that are qualified to rubber stamp an energy assessment that meets the needs of NRCS for EQIP funding. So we did find one, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Other key partnerships to ensure that we've got a high degree, a high likelihood of implementation success are USDA's Rural Development Program. They have grant and loan opportunities that are available for agricultural producers that include Renewable Energy for America program, value-added producer grants, and loan guarantee programs. Also, a program of the USDA is the Farm Services Agency, and they make guarantee loans to family farmers and ranchers to help promote and build family farms. They have a guaranteed conservation loan, which provides a maximum loan of over $1 million to implement any conservation practices in an NRCS-approved plan. So again, ensuring that our assessments meet that high bar of USDA, whether it's FSA or NRCS, is really important to, I think, the success of our implementation. So now you folks who are working on the Hill probably have more insights into the future of the Farm Bill than I do, but all of these programs are heavily dependent on the final Farm Bill outcome. So we kind of all wait with bated breath to see what the end result of the Farm Bill will be. So here's where we're at. We're gaining access and getting the boots on the ground, as I've talked about, by hand-picking 6 extension agents. So though they are, I believe, sort of the trusted source out in the county, as you know, out on the land, not all extension agents are equal. So this is where we want to go back to choosing from the choir. You know, extension agents have a wealth of backgrounds. It could be soil agronomy. It could be no-till practice. It could be a number of different things, but we also need to choose those agents that are open-minded and that are open and kind of see the value of energy efficiency. So we found those, and we're currently training those extension agents in an E3 assessment process that follows NRCS's most vigorous and rigorous data collection model, and it adds some P2 stuff in there too. And this assessment will eventually be certified by a technical service provider. So there's training, and then there's the doing. Our training started yesterday, and our doing starts next week. We're incorporating, each assessment will incorporate a few different things that I'll just roll through here with some pretty pictures of Montana landscapes. We've got headquarters assessments and landscape assessments. So headquarters is anything related, anything building related. So agriculture, so like irrigation pumps, crop storage, farm shops, dairy lighting, cooling systems, all those kinds of things. Landscape is anything out in the field, the grain, the harvesting, anything pertaining to out in the landscape. So I think this picture is a good view of, you can kind of visualize what that is. When we talk about return on investment, both economically, environmentally in the ag sector, this is one of the biggies we need to address and train for, and that's diesel efficiency. And this is where I think we're really going to see a big bang for the buck. So we're partnering with Montana State University Northern's diesel lab for this piece because they've done a lot of research and work into energy efficiency within the diesel sector. The other kind of biggie you're going to that we encounter in the ag landscape is irrigation efficiency. So that's the other avenue that we're really trying to train up our extension agents on. We're doing this training via webinar, so the second of which begins in just a couple hours for me. Again, we're training our agents to, number one, identify headquarters landscape diesel irrigation efficiency opportunities. All of those things when they're walking around in an agricultural producer's land. Number two is to communicate them to the producer. These agents have to be able to communicate what those efficiency opportunities are and articulate very clear recommendations. And quite frankly, the other thing that we're really training our agents to do is nudge these producers a little bit. We can't hand them a fat report and walk away, remembering that these are the anti-choir. These are the folks that we really need to convince. We need to nudge them a lot. And it's going to require more work than just handing them a report. So part of the training is to, train them how to nudge them a little bit in that direction. So kind of back to making it happen, I described needing access, how we're overcoming this hurdle of needing access to farmers' lands, and also how we're getting some boots on the ground. But before that, I just wanted to mention, too, that this training that we're providing that we've designed can be replicated. So whether we're training returning rural veterans or whether we're training agents in other parts of the country, we're trying to design this to be replicable across a whole different arenas geographically and just among different folks that could become an assessor. And the last thing we need to talk about is the third point of making this happen, which is farmers need to tell farmers that this is a worthwhile process. And this comes down to three things. It comes down to the relationship that's formed with the producer and the E3 team. So we need to, again, ensure that this is a relationship of trust and that this is a relationship of commitment. The second thing is to ensure that there's access to implementation funds. And this goes back, again, to ensuring that these assessments are meeting the highest bar possible, where there's the best chance that they can have to access funding. And right now in our ag sector, that is through our USDA partners. And the third is creating a venue for that sharing, for farmers to be able to share their experience with other farmers. And that venue doesn't need to be fancy. For the most part, it's just leaning against a pickup and talking. Quite frankly, it's looking down the stock tank or over a pivot line. It's recognizing that there are achievements through agencies like EPA or like the U.S. Forest Service or any of the other E3 partners, but also through other avenues like the Future Farmers of America and the Cooperative Extension family, for lack of a better word, across the nation. I look forward to sharing our results in October when we have this pilot completed. Now that we have these partnerships established, we hope to take this even further with the next round of source reduction funding. And I just look forward to working with any folks that are interested in using this E3 framework within their state's agricultural sector. I think that this is a potential model that could be replicated across the country, and I think one of the keys is just establishing that strong relationship, figuring out who your key partner is to begin with. And I think in this case, we've found that through all of the different avenues of USDA, from extension to all of their programs on the ground.